This podcast is brought to you by EnergyX. Are you tired of paying huge rates to the big cloud providers? Are you worried about being booted off a cloud platform if your company doesn't meet their ever-shifting standards? Ready to step up your data security and disaster recovery game? Well, ladies and gentlemen, your new cloud is ready. Introducing xCloud, the scalable, resilient computing cloud that is also actually affordable. It's high-performance compute for half the cost. HPC for HTC. xCloud from Red Team is opening a beta program for new cloud computing customers, and that means you, my friend. The xCloud is powered by the XMDC immersion-cooled modular data center from EnergyX. I've seen this data center in operation, and it is a total game changer. So if you want more information about the beta launch, go to the URL in the description. Type in promo code BETA, B-E-T-A, for 50% off of your first instance. And so the URL is going to be digitalwildcatters.com/EnergyX. What's up, Wildcatters? Welcome back to another episode of the Willing Gas Startups podcast. If you've been listening to the show since the beginning, then you know this next guy, John Ferrell, CEO, one of the co-founders of WellDatabase, good friend of the Digital Wildcatters, good friend of mine. You were like episode 3, I think, in the beginning, 2019, March 2019. Julie looked it up. So we did the
it's
first
crazy.
episode. I don't know if we've had you on back since then.
No, I haven't been back here. I jumped on with Jeremy.
We've talked about, I've had an entire kid since the last time I've even seen you.
I grew up, my hair and became white Jesus and then cut it off, and I'm no longer there.
The reason we haven't seen each other is because you moved to Montana.
I did.
You moved to the middle of nowhere, into paradise. You escaped the concrete jungle that is Houston. I'm a little jealous, to be honest with you. I'm going to go look at some houses in Hamilton, Montana.
Yeah. You have a standing invitation to come visit.
I need to. I've been meaning to for so long. But then as soon as you moved up there, COVID hit, the world shut down. Yeah, just like craziness. But for one, it's great to catch up. 2, I want to learn about like what has changed. Since we're talking about like 4 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
In the company, I know a lot of things has changed for you guys. A lot has changed for us since then.
Yeah, it's like a lifetime. You realize we had not met before we did that first. Like
really?
We had just connected on LinkedIn and we chatted a little bit. And so I walked in and met you and Colin that day. It's the very first time we ever met.
Oh my gosh. It feels like I've known you forever.
I know. It's nuts.
All the times we've hung out since then. But you think about like Energy Tech Night 1, like you were there presenting a couple of the other events. I think we did like some of the collective stuff.
Oh yeah. That was a lot. I mean, we were in everything. Like the
night me, you and Josh Robbins went out.
Oh, Josh, I talked to him the other day for the first time in a long time.
I saw him Energy Tech Night in OKC.
He's always fun to talk to. He's a goofball. Love that guy. No, it's crazy when you think about that though. Because like this is rewind back there, like Oil and Gas Startups podcast was to me like the very first avenue for a startup in this industry to get any kind of exposure.
Yeah.
And I think about it now, I'm like, oh, there's all kinds of avenues now, but I actually think 3/4 of them are coming through Digital Wildcatters right now. And so it's not because like the industry changed and now it's like you guys have just grown and expanded more. But like, I couldn't tell you, I remember how thrilled I was because at that time we started WellDatabase probably, I don't know, 5-6 years before that. Mm-hmm. And you just feel like you're on an island. You feel like you're the only person out there and doing a startup, and you walk into these big companies and they're like, who are you and why do I care? You walk into an investment group and they're like, you want to go head to head with 2 of the biggest and oldest companies in the industry? Good luck. We'll see you later. So like, for years I felt like I was just losing my mind. Like this was never going to happen. But then like slowly but surely we get this ecosystem going. It was pretty cool. So I mean, that kicked off a ton of things that we worked together on and stuff. And so it's been a blast.
So for those who are not like familiar with you guys, what high level overview, what do you guys do?
Oh yeah. We do data. No, we go and we, at the end of the day, it's funny. Everyone uses data is the new oil. And that was like years ago. People used to say that stuff. But still people use it, but like, it's still too expensive and still hard to get and cumbersome to deal with. Like I talk to people who spend, majority of their jobs just, cleansing data that is already purchased from a third party. So anyway, we go out and we wrote automation around all these things, go grab all this data and pull it into a single platform. And then we provide it to our users, like, 5-6 different ways. You want to query Snowflake API, you want to get into our portal, you want to do direct exports to any of the applications. And that's really been kind of key. So we get all that data, we clean it, and it runs through by being automated. There was a time where I was like, we automate things because it reduces our cost. And that's still true. But what we found is by automating things, it meant that every time we found a problem with data, we created a rule for it. And that rule fixes that point. And you can run it over historical data, and then you run it on all future data, right? And so that iterative process, feedback we're getting from people today is that we have the cleanest data in the industry. And it's not because we're magical. It's just that, if you've got 17,000 people telling you all the problems in your data and you're writing a rule for each one, of course you're going to get clean data. So anyway, that's what we do. We get the data, we make it clean, we make it usable, and then our platform is like blown up as far as analytic wise, what you can do, all baked into WellDatabase.
Yeah. So you guys are the David to the Goliath of, the Inverse and the IHS, or I guess now S&P.
Yeah.
But it's been so awesome to see you guys grow. So I remember back then, and I've used the platform extensively, I think y'all had it was the data, then y'all had all the built-in kind of visualizations and kind of front end and stuff. But it seems like now y'all are piping a lot of just the data itself into other places where people can take that, play with it, put it in other visualizations. Yeah. What's the split between that? Is it half your customers do half the other?
Yeah, what it is that especially majors, they'll have Spotfire systems, Tableau, Power BI, whatever it is, and you go talk to them. These meetings are great. They're like, "What do you do with data?" I'm like, "Well, we just get the data and we put it in our systems and run." And you're like, "Okay, so what is it?" And they tell you the technology. Okay, so you just query Snowflake if you want to do that. So we pipe it in there so you can get it that way. If you want custom exports, we'll deliver it to you. If you have a local on-prem database you want to manage, that kind of thing. But what we found was so funny is that all of the hoops they're jumping through with these other platforms, our platform had evolved to do all of that for you. And so we'll go into these demos and say, we just need the data. And so I try not to waste people's time. So I'm like, okay, here's what our data is. Here's what it is. Here are our access methods. It's 5 minutes, you want to see the portal? And they're like, oh, sure. And by the time we get to the end of the portal, they're like, man, if we did this, then we don't need these 4 extra systems that have been laying around here that we just use because there's never been anything better. And so it's one of those, I made the joke the other day, Henry Ford, that fake line that's not real, that if I'd have given my customers what I wanted, it would have been a faster horse. People think they just want the data, but they don't realize the power of an online, SaaS analytics engine that they can do. So back to your question, it probably, half our customers are enterprise now and half are more kind of off the street, ones and twos kind of situation. But every single enterprise customer that we have started off saying all they wanted was the data. And today they have users using the platform every single day. So it's a little bit of what they didn't know they could do that they can do now.
It's easy to use. I mean, we used it extensively, but I think particularly during 2019 and 2020.
Yeah, when you were buying wells.
Yeah, we were using it a lot. And it's just really simple to find out whatever answers you're looking for. Then you guys put a lot of thought into any and every possible metric you could want to know is in there.
Yeah, and that's a good and a bad thing. I joked about this not that long ago. Josh and I, the founders, were tech guys, and so of course, we're always around tech. Adding new features, new abilities, and stuff. And the joke the other day was, I think we forgot to sell it somewhere along the way. I go talk to people, and they think we're just another data provider, and they can just get the data. They had they literally have no clue that you can do decline curve analysis and economics and break down analytical type curve comparisons between operators and plays and 3D visualizations of directional surveys. And it's all there in one platform. So it's something we need to do better at marketing. But
what's changed the most in the last 4 years?
Oh, man. I could probably go 4 different directions with that. But
hey, however you want to answer
the thing that hammers me the most is especially being a technical co-founder, which it's something that's it's seemingly kind of rare, right? I mean, almost 3/4 of the people.
It seems like it's becoming more rare.
Yeah, they just want to outsource the tech part and they know the business side, and that's okay. It can work to get off the ground, but you always input this massive amount of technical debt that you have to deal with at some point in time, and people just don't realize. And then the technical side, they don't respect the business side. They're we just make a great product, you build it, and they'll come. That's not true. So anyway, the biggest thing that has changed is I've started to respect all aspects of what it takes to run a business. We've hired people, and I've had to get out of the I do all things for everyone and start delegating to different people, different segments.
It's hard, isn't it?
It's really hard, especially because you see it and you're I wouldn't do it that way, but I got to keep my mouth shut because this is their job. I have to let them run with this.
I think I think because I 100% struggle with the same thing. I think all of us here have at some point. Is it's like you said, you guys have been doing this 6 years before we even met, right? And so in the early days, it's a young company. You're scrappy. You're having to wear a lot of hats. You're having to do a lot of things. It is hard to break out of that mode once you kind of get into a growth cycle of being like, I need to hire, delegate, and push responsibilities down as much as possible. Yeah. Because it does take time to articulate processes and things like that. But it's also, if you find the right people, I think it's, the wrong people, it's very, very costly. Oh, right? And you feel like you have to micromanage and all that kind of stuff. The right people come in and say, you're doing it wrong. Right. Yeah. And then there's a million better ways to do that. But I noticed you guys expanded with like Aaron, and I think you made a couple other hires.
Yeah. We've this year alone have doubled our team awesome. Size wise. But yeah, it's just, and I'm like so hands on with so much and so detail oriented. And you're right. Like I would be in there like, I think it should really be just like this. And sometimes I need to step back and be like, okay, leave it alone and let them do it. And other times I'll say something and they'll let me know what I don't know, which is great. That's when you know you got the right people. And I think we've got a crazy team. We were at Urtech and it was really cool because we just rented a big loft and we all stayed in one big loft together. Yeah. Which sounded weird at first to everybody, and I never really thought about, a bunch of people staying in a loft, men, women, whatever. But it was like the best experience. Like little
team bonding.
Oh yeah, because I mean
because you're a distributed team.
Yes, we're all over the place. Yeah, and so I mean we've got Aaron's in Canada, Oklahoma City, so Calgary, Oklahoma City, Houston, and I'm in Montana. But we have Montana, the oil and gas mecca. But no, we're going to be bringing on people in Denver and I don't know if it's Midland anyway, but yeah, it's distributed, but we get together and man, we just have a crazy, awesome team. Like it's so much fun. And so, yeah, that's the biggest thing that changed from a personal standpoint. It's like letting that go. That is such a hard thing to do. Especially when you're bootstrapped and like whenever you get a lot of capital like up front in the beginning and you start just bringing in people, you never do those jobs. And so you don't really have an idea, but you guys know this because you guys ran without capital for a long time and you kind of know how you like to do everything. And then no one's going to do it just like you, but you got to let them do it their way and probably it's better than your way anyway.
Yeah. I mean, and if not, then you didn't hire the right person.
Right. That's very true.
So, yeah.
So managing people versus doing the job is the biggest change personally. Company wise though, you're just expanding, talking to more enterprises. We went from low barrier to entry, get individuals off the street, credit card, pay, and I don't know how many. I feel like we're one of the only companies that still do that today. But that was where we lived and breathed. So marketing was more of like a broad strokes, trying to get more people, more eyes on the site. Whereas enterprise is a lot of outreach and a lot of sales cycle and planning process, contracts, negotiations. Yeah. And it's all a good thing. And I always want to keep that balance, kind of 50-50 is trying to make sure we don't get too heavy in one side or the other. Yeah. So that's kind of changed a lot of what our product looks like. And
what challenges do you have on like actually like selling this into the enterprise? Because to me, it's always seemed like a no-brainer, right? Because you're giving higher quality data for a fraction of the cost compared to whoever else is out there. Right. And so it just seems like that would just kind of like sell itself. But like obviously there are cultural barriers, I think sometimes in this industry. So I'm kind of curious, has any of that changed over time or?
Man, I don't know. I sometimes think it's gotten worse in some ways. And so like not to be too obvious about it, but like I'm, John and I'm a IT guy at, Chevron or something like that. Like, what is my motivation to go rip out my previous data provider and put WellDatabase in? Yeah. If I don't have a bonus keying off of saving this capital, if I don't have some data piece missing, then I'm doing nothing but creating work for myself to save the company a couple $100,000, right? And like, you could say, well, that's, that shouldn't be how it is, but it just, I mean, people.
That's the reality of it.
Yeah, they need a reason. A reason to push out. So, I mean, and so that drives so much of our inbound traffic is like someone got a goal to reduce data spend by 50%. And so they reach out to us and that that conversation is great because we're just like, we've got the medicine for your pain there. Outbound's a little bit different though. We got to like just kind of be there, and our strategy is really around selling to individuals so that we can start like alleviating, John at Chevron's pain, the thing that he's spending 20 hours screwing with data. We can take it down to nothing. And so he now wants us to make that internal champion where they start breaking out. But yeah, it's really those motivation.
It's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, that's nice. It's those motivations that what drives the processes. And and you guys see this too, the technology, the reason why people adopt technology, you really wish that it was like the best technology wins, but it's not. It's the technology that makes the most sense for a company in a particular position with a particular goal. So yeah, it's completely evasive to answer to your question, but like it is just the timing matters just as much as your product fit. So
is there anything else you feel like you've really just learned either the easy way or the hard way over the last 4 years?
Oh my. Hiring, don't post stuff on just open that you're hiring people. You just get inundated with
unqualified people.
Yeah, well, recruiters, unqualified people. You waste your time. Hiring sucks. I'm not a big fan of hiring. But no, the biggest thing is, I guess, respecting that business side of things as a technical person. I think I probably said it in the very first podcast, and I've known this, so I didn't learn it in the last 4 years, but still, like, you have the best product. It doesn't mean people are just going to buy it. Yeah. You've got to make it make sense to them. At the end of the day, our trajectory has been kind of slower and steady, but we never took capital. We still have never taken capital. And so I think that's expected.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I know that once upon a time you were talking about it and it was like
we've had
substantial numbers.
Right. We've had term sheets and things like that come across and stuff we really, really considered. At the end of
walk me through that for like the entrepreneurs who are listening, who are thinking about like, because that is kind of the road less taken. Right. Especially with, you and I were talking about it, and like we're closing this round of capital, and it's finally for the first time like giving us the resources to be able to allocate to actually making this vision for Collide and really the whole future of the company like come to life. We've been talking about it for years, laying the foundation for it, but we just weren't capitalized well enough to pull it off with given G&A and expenses for the events and everything else.
Right.
So I'm kind of curious like what y'all's thought process was and all that kind of.
I mean, I think we had the kind of, I think like any entrepreneur would look at it and be like, yeah, some capital would help me accelerate a lot of my processes, allow me to bring on more sales and marketing team, build out more technical team and all this. Everyone knows the pros of it, but we rarely think about the cons of what that looks like. And a term sheet does a real good job of laying out what expectations are going to look like. So they're going to give you this, several $1 million. But in return, you're going to have these board seats, board meetings. You're going to have oversight. You're going to have to meet weekly with this group and talk to this group on this time. And
you give yourself a boss. Or bosses.
You do. And I feel like your second. If you do a second round, you end up in a better position that way because it helps you. The first round can help establish an identity. In the second round, they basically are coming in and like, this is already established. You can be a part of what we're doing. Yeah. That also means your first round had to go successful and you had to raise your revenue numbers. But, if you do go out to raise capital, it's a full-time job. It's not something you can do on the side. You can't run a business and grow a business bootstrapped with, 2-3 people and raise capital.
Colin started this last round that we're just now kind of wrapping up. Technically started in like December of last year. Pressed pause for a few months in the middle of the year because it was just like there was no traction, and then fired it back up, and now we're closing and we're almost to October. Yeah, that was a full-time thing. That is like where he spent most of his time over the last year. Yeah, and so you have to make a choice. Especially so. People who do it at the idea phase before a product's there, before there's jokes in the kind of Silicon Valley side is the worst thing a startup could do is make profit. Because as long as you're not making any profit or as long as you're making any revenue, it's all theoretical and you can be worth whatever you want. Of course, you got to sell it, but still, I've seen people sell some crazy stuff. So there's a buyer out there for it. But
But it's a full-time job. And if you've got a company that's making revenue and, you're just a normal person like me who has a family and, bills, I can't just be broke. And so you have to make that call. Are you going to raise capital? Or are you going to grow your business? And then, on the off chance you got like we had, where we had people inbound and we said, sure, we'll talk. And then we met, it didn't constitute a full-time job. It wasn't bad. But then when you get the term sheet, you realize just how much you're giving up. And I'm not even talking about the equity percent. Is that is what it is. It's valuated. That's math. It's easy. It's the control. It's your vision. And when you talk about WellDatabase, we're a freemium software. Freemium and oil and gas. They don't go together. Like, people don't think we should give anything away ever. But we have bigger plans for monetizing our user base. This industry doesn't wrap their head around that idea.
Yeah.
And so if we had taken any of that investment any of those times, we would not be the company we are today. It's just they wouldn't have allowed it. They would have focused on raising our prices. They would have pushed us to hammer just on enterprise, where the big ticket items are. And, they wouldn't have been wrong. We would have made more money, but I think our ceiling would have been lower. And so allowing us to spend our time to build out this user base that we have, as I said it quickly earlier, we have over 17,000 people on our platform now.
Oh, wow.
Which,
that's a lot
in this industry is pretty good.
Yeah.
And so next year you'll be seeing a number of new things come out that help us monetize those users, and it's going to, again, change our ceiling. And so it's my advice to anyone who cares, for what it's worth, is if you want to raise, just do that. Get your thesis, everything pulled together in the beginning, and go raise right off the bat. And then you're going to need to do your seed rounds, or angel or seed, and first, and A, B, C, D, E, whatever you're going to do. You're going to have to keep raising. It's not going to stop, but do it from the beginning and have that's part of your business. And always keep in mind why you're doing what you're doing. If you're doing it to flip it, to go sell it one day, then sure, raise capital, dilute your equity, doesn't matter. Keep the revenue growth, and then sell it. If you're actually trying to build a sustainable business that's making a difference and doing something good, then I'd reconsider getting investment, at least at that early round. Honestly, until you have some good footing about what you're going to be, and you can dedicate that time and energy and not lose the growth on your product.
I think you're spot on. 100%. I agree with that. across the board. There's a lot of things to take into consideration. There's pros or cons. There's, there is trade-offs, and ultimately you have to kind of decide on, what kind of business do you want to build, and how do you want that experience to go. Control is something that's very, very important to Colin and I. And so we've been very cognizant of that. As we've taken on capital, we've never taken $1 of institutional capital. Yeah. It's often individuals.
And I think that's important too, to note. And again, if you want to build a business that you run, do a 5-year and then an exit, then sure, raise capital, blow out your revenue, run in the red, never make a penny. But that revenue growth will afford you to sell and make decent money. And that's fine. It's a fine process. That's what you want to take. But that's, to me, there's the 2 books that I always refer to back to on the startup side. It's 0 to 1 is actually my favorite, because that's kind of where my head always is. Like, I don't want to just do what's already there. I want to make something new that never existed before. I want to change things. Investors hate that. There's a ton of doubt in that, because, it's unknown. The other one is the startup, oh my God, I'm totally getting on it. Anyway, the one where you define your problem and you get buy-in from people before you even start your company.
The lean startup?
Lean startup. That's it. Yeah. So you get all your feedback and basically remove all doubt before you even get off the ground with the product. And that's just getting people what they're asking for. Again, not a bad idea. But if you're doing that, if you're doing the lean startup situation, then you can get capital pretty easily because you've proven it. You can give people what they're asking for, and then you can turn around and sell it, exit as you need to. But if you're doing a 0 to 1 situation where you're building something that never existed before, you need freedom. People don't want to give you money, and then you shouldn't want to take it either, because once you take the money, then they're going to direct where you go. And if you want to build something new, you're not going to be able to.
How has the vision changed for you guys over the years?
It's actually pretty drastic. In the beginning, we really were focused on building online tools, things that we do today, but the data was never really what we wanted to do. We wanted to build online tools where people would do mapping and analytics and all these pieces. But early on, we recognized, and even to do that, we need the data to kind of play with it. So we kind of just dabbled. We grabbed Louisiana data or Texas data.
Yeah.
And so what it evolved to now is it's a foundation. Our data is a foundation of everything we do, and the platform sits on top of it. And so it's evolved from being a tool to now, like, our vision is more of an ecosystem, a platform, like a single unified data platform. Our goal in the end is, if you want data in this industry, in the energy industry, then you come to WellDatabase, because if you're looking for logs, you can get that. If you're looking for maps, you can get that. If you're looking for production data, you can get that. If you want to get, third party, data and piped into the platform, you'll be able to get that. And so we've gone from being a tool to a platform is really what our goal, what our vision has changed to be.
Has anything changed about the North Star, about where you guys are headed?
It hasn't, actually.
Okay.
The only thing I'd say will change and I probably said this before, our goal, we never ever built an exit plan in mind. Our goal was always to build the best product we could and serve our customers the best we can, and our exit will figure itself out. So that's still the same.
I think that's honestly the best strategy.
Yeah. I mean,
same with here. We never had planned on building this into a company in the first place, right? This was just a podcast, and then turned into kind of everything else. But
no, and it's hard though. It's another area, like if you get especially institutional money, that's not okay. They want an exit plan, a full blown exit plan for them and you both. So by not doing that, it's allowed us to be a little more agile and kind of shift that vision. Although, I mean, the vision just got bigger, really, is all that happened. But no, we're still have that same kind of mindset that and I say it to the staff now, kind of ad nauseum. I was like, you worry about marketing. Are you hitting them too much? Are you emailing too much? Are you contacting too much? Are you posting too much or too little? All these things. And I'm just like, if we're providing something value for the customer, then it doesn't matter. Like, it's when we stop providing anything good for them, then our decisions get bad. And that seems basic, but still, and the same thing in our sales process. Like, if we're truly trying to help them, then making them sign a contract here to ensure that they go through our onboarding process to ensure they get the best possible experience with WellDatabase, as long as our intentions are good, it'll be all right. If you're trying to lock them into a contract because you want to be kind of sneaky and make sure they don't leave, then that's shitty, and you shouldn't do that. So that helps us kind of guide everything we do, kind of keeping that base, who's important, who we're serving here.
Dude, I love it. Let's this is totally random, but since you're one of the most like technical guys that I know, how does all the new AI stuff play into the oil and gas space?
Man, I'm the worst person to ask that question to, because
just been in your log cabin out there.
No, it's not that. Like, I'm a purist. I'm like, here's data, here's analytics, here's machine learning, here's AI.
Yeah.
And people will throw AI into standard analytics, and that bugs the shit out of me. But since that's the landscape, I'm going to put aside my own kind of weird bias and whatnot. The biggest problem is that people are throwing these technologies in areas that they're kind of bastardizing the reasons and purposes for them just because they need the buzzwords. They need the
that's always the case, right? It was the same thing with the blockchain. It was like, you don't need a blockchain for certain things. It was just like they throw that in there, they're able to go and raise more money. And
and what sucks is that there are very real applications for these things, and someone like myself just gets so annoyed with the fact that blockchain made a fantastic vehicle for gas trading in the pipeline world, where people are constantly changing volumes and moving, and they're having to, these contracts are flipping really quick. And I don't know that world really great. This actually all came up, Trevin Bond and I were talking about it one day, and it was really remarkable hearing how much goes on and how an automated ledger would be just brilliant for that. And blockchain provides that. I never saw anything implemented in that regard. So it's like this great technology, but it's not utilized right. And same thing goes with like machine learning and AI. Like, people want to talk about it using machine learning and type curve analysis. I'm like, well, really in type curves and decline curve analysis, you could use machine learning in it, but honestly, in algorithmic, along with statistics and probabilities, that gets you the real answer. If you're throwing machine learning in, you're just doing it to get the buzzword. But then there's other areas like where we have a little internal tool we're working on for offset picking. It seems hilarious because it seems simple, but people are notoriously picking bad offset wells and running analytics based upon them, and then creating type curves and forecasts based off of poor foundational data. And so using machine learning, what we could do is we can take an area of data. We have all the data in place. We can start to define the drivers of production and then classify them as which offsets are more, alike to each other. And that works in a small area, but also for entire basins, finding analogous, basins across things. So that's where machine learning has like real value, real.
There's a million variables when you're actually like diving deep into, figuring out those comps. It's almost like, I don't know, half an art, half a science currently, but I feel like the machine learning could definitely help.
Yeah, at least it gives concrete to it. That's what it is. Like, because early on, and I feel like we don't get it quite as much, but I swear, like the silver bullets I heard, it's lateral length, it's proppant loading, it's, pressures and there's all these different things.
And those could all be true.
Well, yeah. For any particular play, for any particular time. And there's all kinds of reasons why that is or isn't true, but like there's no one silver bullet. Everything is related to where you're at. And to be perfectly honest, what's underground that you can't see. But about technology though, in our platform, we're trying to do like real applications that have real value. And again, transparency in our system is super important. That's what you get with like tech nerds. That like we hate the idea of handing people data, asking them to trust it when they have no clue how it came to be. And some of this is easy and some is more complicated, like allocating production data in Texas. The other companies just give it to you and say, here's the number. We give you that and the process that we took to get there and all the variables we used, and anything you want to know to recreate it yourself, you have from us. And so that's where our kind of hesitation on some of the AI and machine learning we can use, because you do end up a little black boxy in it, and we want to avoid some of that. But I do love ChatGPT whenever it helps me write talks and things like that, and marketing materials. And
I feel like there's so many opportunities with like how much data you guys have. Like there's so many opportunities, because I think about like, so I've got this Whoop here, right? Fitness tracker, for those who are not familiar with it, right? Traditional fitness trackers just like tracked your shit and just like told you, here's what your metrics are, right? But with the Whoop and just as many users they have on there, they have like these, crazy, for one, it's the most accurate that's out there, but two, they have all these algorithms where they're starting to make all these correlations and starting to say like, if you have 2 drinks, there's a journaling aspect to it. You capture certain features on the night before. Every morning it prompts you. And it's like, if you drink past a certain time, your recovery rate is going to drop off by 40%. If you have a late meal. If your strain was this high. It starts to give you suggestions. So now you're starting to use it to make decisions, for one, that are clear to you, but also, even more importantly, decisions that are not clear, that it's inferring from the data, because it's capturing information 24/7. The more you wear it, the more. And then it's also playing that into how do you stack up. So they're starting to be able to like to tell, this thing tells me when I'm sick before I even know that I'm sick. It'll say your skin temperature is elevated, your blood oxygen's like too low, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, I don't feel bad yet. But then 4 or 5 hours later, I'm like, I don't feel very good.
Yeah, that was it.
So, but using that as an analogy, like you guys have arguably more data than anybody, being able to apply that same kind of technology there to where it's like, like there's things that we weren't even looking for that are now kind of being spit out as like suggestions.
Yeah, no, that's actually perfect. I did a talk on that once about the almost every machine learning and AI project that has been publicized in the oil and gas world. Most of them are failures that I'd like to talk about, and I feel like that's just people trying to naysay tech, but that's okay. But when you read the details, like their data sets are too small. They're basically, you're getting, 1,000 wells that you drilled, that you have all the data for, and saying it didn't give you any insight when you're in a machine learning model on it. It's like, well, you fed it all the data. What did you expect? Like, and I get it. Maybe there was something but we have smart people here. Like, they definitely know what's going on the wells that they drill, but they don't know what's going on in their neighbors, or bigger picture vintage, or the depositional formations. And anyway, so that's where ours does come in play. And that's why I kind of lean toward that offset analysis piece, because it's like, how do we better define what the offsets look like? And then how do we better from there determine the drivers of production? And again, that's real use of machine learning that can help, move things forward and answer questions, not just, random things that can be done with an Excel spreadsheet.
That's always the $1 million question. It's just like, why do I need this versus You just plug in
Well,
this
we
into
do
my
it to
Excel
ourselves,
spreadsheet.
though. I watched, and I won't even say who or anything, but I watched a whole talk about using this ML model to calculate, well intervention schedules and things like that. And the whole time I'm watching, I'm really interested, like learning what they're doing. And I get to the end and I realize that like a simple ratio would have done what they were trying to accomplish if they were, measuring two of these variables side by side. And of course, you probably want to use like second derivative. People forget that calculus exists, by the way. That's the other thing. Like machine learning is an answer for everything when, there's a physics world that answers a lot of things for us too. But anyway, it was a ratio that like this whole machine learning model thing that they spent 6 months on, like it was a complete waste of time if someone just stepped back and was like, yeah, no, we just need to do the second derivative rate of change to define when the ratios change. And that gives us our well intervention schedule. It's even predictable that way. And so we have to be careful whenever we're implementing these ML projects, AI projects, when we're doing it just because we want to do it. And
I think you're 100% spot on. Well, dude, I'm starving. You want to grab some lunch?
yeah, let's go.
Let's do it. Guys, if you like the episode, take 2 seconds, leave us a rating review. You can go check out WellDatabase at, I think it's still WellDatabase.com,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yep,
Yeah, so go check them out. John's on LinkedIn. They're going to have a profile on DWB Insights. So if you're a subscriber there, you can check it out there, learn more information. Thanks for coming on again.
Man, it's been
Let's make
great.
sure we don't make it 4 years again.
Absolutely. Sounds good, man. Appreciate it.